expenditure be agreed to, and I call the member for Barton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What I want to do is not go to the text of what I'd like to say today immediately. I'll put on the record the 5 questions to the Minister that Labor is seeking answers to in your response, Minister. Minister, given the results published the first is, Minister, given the results published in the IBA's annual report, how confident are you that the target $150 million in loans will be met, and how many loans or houses do you expect will be achieved, and are you confident that the figure will be met, is the first question. The second question I'd like to put on record is, given the shortages and the issues facing remote communities, would have this money been better spent in remote housing? The third question I'd like to put on record, as part of the co-design consultation process budgeted for the 2019-2020 budget, has the consultation process recommended a Makarrata Commission or something similar? The fourth question I'd like to put on the record, it goes again to the consultation process referred to in question 3. Has a treaty process been recommended? And if there is no such recommendation, will the government consider a treaty process? And finally, Minister, can I put on the record, it has been well reported that the government voted down a motion to fly the Aboriginal flag and the Torres Strait Islander flag in the Senate this week. Will you consider joining me in putting forward a motion to change the House practice and include flying the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flags in the House? Through you, Mr. Speaker, they are the 5 questions I put to the Minister. I will now go to the text of some of the points I wanted to make. In relation to housing, of course, this pandemic has reminded us of the importance of a home, and you cannot properly self-isolate if a home is overcrowded. Indigenous Australians make up 3% of the Australian population, but account for 20% of all persons who are homeless or at the last census. The National Aboriginal Community Controlled Health Organisations estimate that in some parts of Australia, an average of 17 people are living in a single small dwelling, and 5 or 6 to a single bed, with 5 or 6 people to a single bedroom. The high rates of overcrowded dwellings in First Nations communities was included in the recently revised Closing the Gap targets to increase proportion of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people living in appropriately sized housing to 88% by the year 2031. In relation to some specific comments on the voice to the Parliament, reconciliation and the flag, the Uluru Statement called for 3 modest asks: a constitutionally enshrined Indigenous voice to the Parliament, a Makarrata Commission to oversee the process of agreement and treaty making, as well as to oversee the process of truth-telling. Labor remains committed in full to the Uluru Statement. We have always said that First Nations people are best placed to address the challenges that face us. This necessarily means First Nations people have a say in the decisions and laws that affect us. It means a voice that represents gender balance, that represents Indigenous Australians in our regions as well as our cities. It means a voice that is secure and certain and cannot simply be removed by the government of the day. A Makarrata Commission obviously is about treaty and agreement making, and we know that there are a number of treaty processes that have commenced, as the Minister would be aware of, in a number of jurisdictions. For a proper and meaningful reconciliation, it must mean recognising our past as a nation and the atrocities faced by First Peoples. We must recognise this past if we are truly to unite as one country. It is knowing and acknowledging this past and the healing that is required to move forward. We've recently heard from the Prime Minister, the singing of the national anthem at rugby league games unites us. What will unite us in recognising and acknowledging our First Nations past?
Member's time has expired.